Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to the London Centre. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Benjamin O'Connor. I'm a director at NLA, London's Built Environment Community. In today's showcase event, we wanted to introduce you to the work that we do and have coming up, and let you know how you can get more involved. So for those of you who don't know, NLA is London's Community for the Built Environment, an independent membership organisation. We bring together built environment professionals, politicians, and crucially, members of the public to learn about, debate, and ultimately have a voice on the future shape of London. Our membership includes 450 companies, or some 30,000 individuals and growing, across all sectors of the built environment, making us the largest cross-sector membership organisation to actively focus on improving the built environment for Londoners. Amongst our members, we include civic bodies such as the GLA, TfL and Network Rail, and as of, I think, yesterday, 28 of London's local authorities, almost got them all, business improvement districts, architects, developers and community organisations, and many, many more. Our year-round programme includes research, events, roundtables, festivals, awards, and through this work, we engage some 1.2 million people annually. As an entirely independent organisation, all our work is funded and supported through our active membership base. We were delighted to open our new home, the London Centre, where we are now, in the West Wing of the Guildhall in April this year, with support, of course, from the City Corporation. The space is free and open to the public 5 days a week. That's Tuesday to Saturday, 11 till 5. And you can come and view at any time to see our amazing models of London and learn about and engage with plans for the physical development of the city. We're the UK's first urban room, and our ability to open up the discussion and give clarity on plans for the city has always been a core part of what we do. We host regular events here, school groups, international delegations, and our members hire the space for their own events too. The NLA is now some 18 years old, and we've grown to a team of around 45 really brilliant people, all passionately engaged with helping our community to make new connections, bring new talent into the industry, and drive new and innovative ways of thinking about the future of the city. Each year, we host over 250 events, from annual conferences on housing, transport, and the workplace, to roundtables, site tours, and networking evenings. Our events provide a key opportunity to understand latest market trends and make lasting connections across the industry. We host monthly members networking events, both here and in key new buildings and places across London. In fact, right now, there's one going on, I think, in Holborn, one of our NLA Nights events. So taking place now also this June is the London Festival of Architecture. It's the world's largest architecture festival, happens annually. It celebrates architecture, of course, good design and city making across the city. This year, our theme is In Common, and our programme is active in all corners of the capital, which I encourage you all to check out online. Coming up this September is the annual London Real Estate Forum, hosted at the Barbican, which brings industry and city leaders together to focus on sustainable investment and development in cities. And this November, we will celebrate the very best new projects being delivered for London, which will be the winners of our New London Awards at our annual awards lunch at the Guildhall. All this work is made possible through our communication channels, which enable us to engage a wider audience in the big issues and ideas for London, with regular news, interviews, profiles and articles from across our community, profiled across our websites, our social media, alongside, of course, our award-winning magazine, New London Quarterly. Engaging young people in the future of their city is critically important to our mission, and our learning programme works to inspire young Londoners about the vast array of opportunities available to them within the built environment sector, where they can help to shape a more equitable and sustainable city. Through our partnership with the Harris Federation, we work with school children in areas of high socioeconomic disadvantage, giving them direct access to industry professionals from across our membership and supporting diverse talent into the industry. Our Next Gen programme, so this takes all of this to the next stage, championing the professional development of London's future leaders. This group take an active role in our programme, sharing ideas and solutions for London. Our regular Next Gen networking events are increasingly popular, and our members use these to enhance their early stages of their careers and make new connections, gain experience, and share new thinking. Our diverse leaders work, we have a big programme on diversity. All of our members are encouraged to sign up to the Diverse Leaders Pledge, which champions a representative sector. The pledge enables businesses to commit to measurable goals over the coming years that will catalyse change, enabling engagement, action, and progress within the workplace. Coming up this year, We'll also be launching 2 new major pieces of research, which we'll be exploring in much more detail through our programme. Circular London, building a new renewable city due to launch next month, looks at best practice currently in action to make best use of new low carbon and recycled materials across London, and examines what London's policymakers and professionals will need to do to embrace a truly circular economy. And in the autumn, in September in fact, we launch our housing innovation research, which will shine a light on new and scalable solutions to delivering affordable housing and sustainable housing for the capital. Our direction is guided by our New London Sounding Board, which brings together diverse thinkers from across London and is chaired by Sadie Morgan. They are supported by 5 committees and 15 expert panels, multidisciplinary groups which come together year-round to develop thought leadership on core sectors for London, and which go on to influence our work, London policy and wider practice. Overall, we have some 300 plus multidisciplinary experts from across our membership on these panels, which we refresh each year. This vast group is currently helping us to develop the New London Agenda, a manifesto for our community, an action plan for us all to get behind as we work together to shape a better city through the principles of taking collective responsibility, providing clarity and building trust. The timing could not be more important, with a mayoral election due in May next year and a general election likely within the next 18 months. I'm delighted now to welcome Robert Evans, who is a partner at Argent and Related Argent. He was also former chair of our sounding board and current member of the New London Sounding Board, to say a little more about his role and what these principles of collective responsibility, clarity and trust mean to him and to our community. Robert.
To be wearing 2 mics and there's a third over here, so I'm not sure what I have to say is that important, but hopefully you can hear me at least. Is that good? Good. So yes, as been explained, I'm from Argent and Related Argent, and I'm also the chief exec of King's Cross, which very helpfully they put right in front of me here. So I'm responsible for this bit here, which I've been part of for the last 22 years, and that's been a huge part of what Argent has been doing. And I will touch on that. As been said, yes, taking responsibility, clarity, and trust. So it's very hard to start on any topic, I think, other than climate change. We have, by common consensus, an emergent thing. And this has already prompted cities and industry to take responsibility. That's one of tonight's themes. And I would say run ahead of national governments. We can't wait for governments to do the right thing. And we've seen 2 examples of this running ahead in the last week, actually. The first is, you might have seen the UK Green Building Council letter. Then more than 100 businesses and organisations came together and signed a letter calling on the government to amend the latest planning reforms, known as LURB, which is Levelling Up Regeneration Bill, not my acronym. And the signatories for that wanted the government to align the LURB bill with the UK's commitments and adaptation goals under the Climate Change Act, and also nature restoration targets under the Environment Act. The second example, again in the same week, a new partnership, including a colleague of mine, David Partridge, who chairs the governance committee, have come forward with a new net zero carbon building standard. I think this is really important. Sounds really techie, but it's actually really important. A single standard, if we can get there, offers huge clarity. Again, another of tonight's themes. An agreed set of performance targets for different asset types. It should enable buildings claiming to be net zero to demonstrate that they actually do meet science-based decarbonisation criteria. There's 114 pages out for consultation. It is quite complicated, but everyone in our industry, in my view, should read them and get involved. It's the biggest issue facing the real estate industry. As a sector, I'm very clear that we can and must do more. We are responsible for 39% of global related carbon emissions. 28% from operational emissions, so that's the energy to heat, cool and power buildings, and 11% from materials and construction. So it's the operational energy and the embodied energy. So we all need to step up, and that has to be part of the London agenda. At King's Cross, that I've mentioned, we're already carbon neutral, and there's been a huge number of things that we've done to get there. I won't labour on those now. Happy to talk about that afterwards. This meant huge investment using the power of a mixed-use asset of 67 acres and 8 million square feet. We're very proud to be carbon neutral, but that's clearly not enough. There's a huge step to get from carbon neutral to carbon net zero. In our case, this means reducing the amount of energy that we use, even if it is from renewable sources. We need to bring the energy efficiency up on our buildings by about 66%. That is a big ask. We plan to switch the estate away from green gas and to electricity and to move away from combined heat and power and towards air source heat pumps. We plan to reduce the temperature of our heating systems down and move towards ambient heating. We have to work with our occupiers to do that. We have to put new plant in all our buildings and probably align that with lease renewal events. It's really complicated. We're talking about tens of millions of pounds. But we have to do it. It's also, I would say to all of you, absolutely in our interest. I'm not sure how many of you are building owners, but if you are building owners, you've got to do it. There is increasing evidence that the best buildings with a clear path to net zero and other strong ESG credentials are pulling away from the rest of the market. There is, in effect, a new Cat A, a kind of Cat A plus, use whatever term you like, no one can define it. And demand for these buildings is currently outstripping supply. We are seeing genuine rental growth in that category of the market. This is propping up values as yields soften in response to rising interest rates. The best is delaminating completely away from the rest. The rest is a depreciating asset and facing dilapidation, or hopefully repurposing. The embodied carbon in our buildings means that we must more often retain and remodel buildings as opposed to knocking them down and starting again. Our planning system used to be agnostic about this. It was down to people's own choice, outside of heritage considerations. No longer. In many parts of the country, including where we are today, we are seeing guidance coming forward that requires developers, people like me and our design teams, to submit information about the carbon impact of different design choices. I personally completely agree that carbon considerations should be weighed in the planning balance. We have, after all, an emergency. Retention and remodeling will more often be the answer, but not always. We need to be really clear on that. Either way, we need metrics that are consistent and offer clarity. I bring you back to that standard and the guidance and the consultation out this week. If we don't get that right, we are in danger of further complicating an already Byzantine, fiendishly complicated planning system, introducing more delays, losing the people that we serve and eroding trust further in our sector. It's going to be a lot of work. There are lots of different ways to count and measure carbon. I'm sure many of you know that. And as an industry is now springing up, advising those involved in schemes for and against on how proposal can best be measured and presented. There's a huge number of boffins presenting technical evidence about life cycle embodied carbon, whole life cycle carbon, tons of CO2, kilograms of CO2 per meter squared, GIA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is why the work on a single standard is so important. Alongside this, we need new skills and funding models to grapple with the repurposing of buildings and new incentives, I would say that, wouldn't I, for building owners to bring them forward. It's a massive challenge, and we need to lead it as part of the London agenda. So if planetary carbon equity is the first topic, I suggest social equity is the second. You may have heard the phrase, a rising tide lifts all boats. I'm not sure many people agree with that now, or at least agree that it lifts all boats sufficiently when it comes to social progress. Joe Negrini, another member of the sounding board, said recently that people are pointing to inequalities in cities rising up and making demands. Post the global financial crisis, post-Brexit, post-pandemic, and post everything else you can think of, with troubled capitalism and a climate crisis, just talking about that, there is what Professor Greg Clark, another founding board member, calls a new social contract for our cities. This contract is intolerant of high carbon living, focused on clean air, healthy lifestyles, and affordable housing. It envisages a city, I can't say that, a city that works for all its citizens, not just the highly paid or the highly skilled. A city of stronger, inclusive, and more equal communities. How can our industry step up and help deliver that? That's part of the challenge. We need to directly address social equity alongside climate change. And that does mean reassessing how we cluster people and systems and assets together in cities. It's a kind of a new license to operate for businesses and investors. We've had 15 years of relatively benign conditions, cheap money and rising values. And yet the standing of our industry with the public is pretty low. I think debates over affordable housing have played a part in this, and I will turn to that in a minute. So I think we do need new models of delivery, and we've been grappling with that at the sounding board, or maybe just finding old ones again. A few years ago, writing about King's Cross, I'm not wishing to make a point about King's Cross particularly, Rowan Moore likened it to a de facto municipal development corporation. He talked about it being the fulfillment of an idea that the best way to transform an urban area and to improve the lives around it with facilities and investment is for new development to take the lead whilst working closely with local authorities and local communities. He talked about a de facto municipality whilst also making a profit for the backers. He asked the question, why can't others repeat the trick? I ask a more fundamental question, why can't we go further? Perhaps we need new structures, new models of corporations that bring together the public, the private, the registered providers and the charity sectors to deliver comprehensive change and social equity. And I'm not sure anyone's achieved that yet. I'm going to touch on building regulations, if I may. Another plea for clarity. We just passed 6 years anniversary of Grenfell, and yet uncertainty still surrounds the responsible actor scheme, the requirements for second staircases in taller buildings, and how these should be delivered. The general public are probably forgiven for thinking that building regulations are crystal clear texts that say do this and don't do that. They're mystified, frankly, why so many of our buildings are failing and need fixing. The reality, as I'm sure you all know, is one of complex performance standards and product data that's derived from a mixture of measurement and all too often dodgy modelling, of a marketplace of approved inspectors offering different interpretations of compliance. And then the government comes along and moves the goalposts, for example, around balconies and how they are assessed as part of the facade system, and then denies that it has done so and attacks the industry, painting a picture of profiteering crooks and dodgy charlatans. Let's face it, we've lost the argument on that. We've lost public trust. It may be unfair, but it's true. But there has been some bad practice out there and a reluctance to take responsibility. People already thought that developers manipulated the rules around affordable housing, rightly or wrongly. Now they think that we manipulate building safety rules as well. Bad picture, isn't it? Let's turn to affordable housing and planning. When I were a lad, which was a while ago, there's no way I can join the next gen. It sounds great, but I'm not allowed. We used to have a planning system where planners wrote plans and policies that you could actually meet. And if you did, you generally got planning permission. We now have a system of aspirational policies designed to trigger a complex and time-consuming negotiation, one that leads to planners who weren't trained for the task becoming effectively tax collectors. I think clarity and trust have been two of the losers from this. Those of us buried in the system know why a policy that says 50% affordable housing or 35% doesn't often happen on individual sites in real life. But the public, again, doesn't understand why that should be so. And it undermines their faith and trust in the whole system and all of the actors in it that happens too often. Planning generally has become the politician's favourite policy hoover. It's been reformed endlessly and expanded in scope, and it's now a complete mess. And I say that as a failed planner. More reform, however, is on the way. I've already mentioned the LURP. I haven't mentioned the infrastructure levy, which I could talk about. I'm not hopeful. We are faced with Hobson's choice. The system is dysfunctional, but further change is the last thing that many planners need. I'm not sure how many of you are planners. The new agenda can't achieve national reform. It can't solve the system. It can't fix all of this stuff. But it can recognise the problems and address it and start to show what we can do to move the debate forward. There's a huge amount at stake, of course, for our sector, but also the city. There is a danger, I believe, in London of overconfidence, a reliance on this kind of London as an unbreakable winner. But in my experience, potential investors are being more questioning about London now, because they are more questioning about the UK generally. London's always got by with a system of kind of fudge and nudge. Yes, the governance is a bit messy and the priorities are not very clear, but people have put up with it to operate in the capital. But I think we should now be bolder and clearer as part of this important new agenda. We need to be clear around Opportunity London, which is on the board over there. How are we going to attract significant investment into London's built environment and use it to make the most difference? Some of us are looking at some new models for funding affordable housing, for example. We're worried that the old model of cross-subsidy on the viability of wider mixed-use schemes might be broken. So we're looking at the idea of a London fund, which could deliver new affordable housing and green infrastructure on a kind of pooled aggregate funding basis, cutting through the kind of current model of project-by-project capital raising, which, if any of you have ever been through that, is pretty friction-laden, takes a lot of time, and is a huge drag on the whole system. The London Fund, if we get it off the ground, looks to aggregate and pool the demand in this sector and boost the delivery of hopefully carbon net zero affordable housing across London at scale. And there is genuine interest in that, a number of areas. So if you happen to have a few billion and you want to invest in the London Fund, please see me afterwards. Having scanned the invite list, I'm not sure that applies to anyone, but you never know. You never know who's listening. This might be my chance to kick off the fund. Those are some of the issues that the Sounding Board and the Next Gen Board have been grappling with. And one of the great things about the Sounding Board in the last few years is that the Next Gen group have come along and given us a really different voice at the Sounding Board and helped create a very big debate, particularly around that social equity that I mentioned. Our industry has got a big job to do, but we are a very positive can-do industry. There's lots of things that we can do for the first time really well if we put our minds to it. I think a concerted effort to take responsibility for these issues, offer clarity and provide purpose via the agenda offers a really great way forward to move our city forward and also build greater trust. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Robert. Thank you. And thank you all for coming. Hopefully this has given you a little bit of a flavour for what we do and some of the ways that you can get involved. For those of you who are members, we really value your active participation and support for all that we do. We've got a number of the NLA team around. Nikki, Turia, yeah, Hans. What about Hans? There's about 4 or 5 of us sort of dotted around. And they'll all be happy to talk to you about how you can get more involved in all of our activities, contribute your expertise, profile your work, and create new connections for you and your team across our community. If you're not an NLA member, why not? I won't do hands, but we've got a number of different levels of membership, starting from just £20 a month for a personal membership or £60 a month for a company membership, which gives your entire business access to the whole array of activities. So we'd love to work with you as we continue our mission to help shape a better city. Thank you very much for coming.